You have 5 minutes to speak about anything that's not on the agenda for tonight. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You gonna read the rules?
No, I'm not going to read the rules. We know what the rules are.
Well, I'm here to challenge the rules. How's that? My name's Mike Doyle. I live on Shady Lane. And 8 years ago this May, the council at that time was sent a letter by the Maine Civil Liberties Union describing that the proposed rules changed to public forum were illegal. And they condemned the council for even proposing them. And I'm going to read briefly from the letter from 8 years ago. The rule banned certain speech based upon its content. Content-based restrictions are presumptively unconstitutional in RAV versus City of St. Paul, Minnesota, 505 U.S. 377, 382, 1992. That's a United States Supreme Court ruling. In order to meet constitutional muster, such a restriction must survive strict scrutiny and be narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling state interest. The rule that is normally read at this time do not come close to meeting that standard. Also, in Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona, and soon there'll be a decision on Lozman, Lozman v. Rivera Beach, Florida, exactly the same situation. Content-based censorship. In another ruling, unpleasant comments are an unavoidable part, perhaps an essential part, of the hurly-burly of living in a free and open democracy. Justice Brandeis wrote that the freedom to think as you will and to speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth. That was Whitney v. California, 274 U.S. 357, 375, 1927, Brandeis J. concurring. This freedom results in speech that some find undesirable. However, because we are a country that values free speech so highly, and because the courts are understandably cautious about granting government the power to regulate that speech, a content-based restriction must meet stringent requirements to be found constitutional. Your rule that was read to me recently by Caleb does not meet those requirements, and therefore is unenforceable. We condemn, this is the Maine Civil Liberties Union, we condemn the council's passage of the resolution that attempts to limit protected speech. Now, I'm sure Nathan can find this letter someplace in the archives, but I'm going to give you a copy of it today. You know, a few years ago, I started asking a lot of freedom of access requests, and the previous council hired Drummond & Woodson and paid them $3,400 to author a protocol to fill out before you can ask a freedom of access question. I never filled out one of those. You know why? You, the town of Falmouth, and the town council do not have the authority to amend a state law. This might be news to everyone sitting at the table right now, but to fill out a protocol, which was not part of the state freedom of access law, is an amendment to the state law. You don't have the authority to do that. Your little rules that you read before I speak are unconstitutional. This has been tested out in Scarborough. They had me arrested and taken to jail because I would not stop speaking when they were yelling at me. And I was arrested when I sat down in my seat. I had to bail myself out of jail. They lost that case just recently. It was dismissed with prejudice. So if the police officer who is rolling around here, if he arrests me tonight, I'm going to charge him with unlawful arrest, false arrest, and sue him personally for it. If I'm arrested while I'm speaking at the public forum, under this protection of the First Amendment, I will sue everybody sitting at the table and the town. Now, if you want to start spending money for lawyers and legal fees and lawsuit settlements, go for it. But I'm going to exercise my rights under the First Amendment to speak what I want to say, when I want to say it, for 5 minutes at this podium. And if you want to challenge me, please do. I'll give you another example. Years ago, we were going to be like the first town to do an RSU with Cumberland. Everybody thought that was a great idea until a person in town did a report on what it was going to be like when their teacher's contract came up to be renewed, and to bring their teachers up to our pay level. We, in this town, we're going to have to pay $2 million more in property taxes. Now, if I wanted to pay a teacher in Cumberland, I would have bought a house in Cumberland. And no one knew about this because no one actually made any announcements about this when it was up for a decision. When this guy did a 2-page white paper on it, and the word got around town that we're gonna have to pay $2 million more in taxes, it went to a vote, and this thing crashed at I think it was a 60-40 vote. And that's why we're not RSU number 1. So you need to have some council memory of what's going on and what your limitations are. Your limitations are you don't have authority over the First Amendment, and you don't have the ability to amend a state law. And on top of everything else, you let Democrats speak up here 6 and 7 minutes and 8 minutes, and because I'm a Republican, I'm held to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. You get 3 minutes per person, and seeing you're first in line,
My name is Mike Doyle. I live on Shady Lane. I lived in Falmouth at 3 different addresses for 40 years. And I have news for folks here at the council table. No one in this town cares what you do until it impacts them. And if you take this situation with the high density back to 6 or 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was passed, if you had a footnote at the bottom that said this is going to allow us to put 152 units west of Route 26, elbow to elbow, hell would have broken loose back then. So now that this thing has gone through periods of years, and now there's a development in process for 152 units, everyone's now aware of it. So I think for transparency, when you do something like this, you have to look at the worst case scenario of one of your actions and advise the members of the residents of the town of Falmouth, this is the worst case that can happen. And see what the reaction is back, relative to that situation. And the petition, I know is not going to be approved because I was watching the lawyer from Drummond and Woodson describe all the reasons why it doesn't qualify. I understand that process. But I think to be fair to the residents of the town of Falmouth, you need to outline worst case scenarios on all the things that you do from this point forward. And one last thing, what Fred Chase said, before you spend another $5,000 with Drummond and Woodson, drawing up a regulation to have the requirement to have a permit to carry a gun in this town, once again, that's a state law. You do not have the authority to amend a state law. So don't spend any money with Drummond and Woodson to have them draw up a regulation that requires people in the town of Falmouth to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Thank you.